everyone, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Alexandre Gordon-Stewart, and I'm part of the marketing team here at BIM Track. So today, my colleague Alexandre Cantin from our parent company of BIM specialists, BIM One, will be showing you guys what the advantages are and some of the challenges faced, as well as the strategies used when using a cloud-based collaboration software, and in this instance, on the 5-story community center in Saint-Roch. So before I hand over to Alexandre, a few little housekeeping notes. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat portion of GoToWebinar. I'll be asking Alexandre a few questions today live at the end of the webinar. Finally, recordings of the webinar today will be sent to all who registered. So if you have a colleague who wasn't able to make it in, no problem, should go straight to them, or you can forward it as well. So without further ado, here's Alexandre.
Hi everyone, thank you Alexandre. So I'm Alexandre Cantin. I'm currently a BIM manager at BIM One Inc. Before working here shortly to present myself, I studied to become a civil engineering technologist between 2007 and 2010. I specialized in structure. So after school, I worked for structural engineering companies for about 4 years before BIM One hired me. In the past years, I started working with architects for BIM implementation and BIM project management. And during the last year, approximately, having a civil background, I also started specializing in CIM, which is civil engineering, civil information modeling, city information modeling, sorry. Which is pretty much BIM at a bigger scale. Also, computational is very trendy these days, so I try to optimize design processes, automation, and quality control as well. Fun fact, I am actually the employee number 001 at BIM One, which means that my bosses are number 2 and number 3. So I saw the whole BIM One and BIM Track team expand, and we are now currently approaching, I think, 40. So enough about me. So this is the topic that we are going to discuss today. So I'm going to present the overview of the project, which is the Saint-Roch Community Center. We are going to see what are the main project-based challenges that we encountered regarding communications. Based on those challenges, we are going to see what processes and strategies had to be implemented to make the communication work efficiently. And we are going to see what we were able to achieve. So the project itself, it's the Saint-Roch Community Center. It's based in Quebec City in the Saint-Roch district. It has one underground level with a swimming pool at this level. It has 4 over the ground levels, and those levels are connecting to the existing parking, which we don't see right now, but it's just behind the building. It has a 2nd floor with a gymnasium and a running track, a workout gym also at this level. As I said, a connection to the existing parking. And a small note, more on the BIM side, but the client provided a point cloud for that site. Basically, a point cloud is points positioned in 3D that have colors, so it helps us visualize existing conditions. The point cloud also helped visualize and position the building on site, and also understand the connection to the existing parking ramps accurately. And the point cloud was also used at different moments in the project to visualize the project progress in its context. So the point cloud actually was used for both visualization and coordination purpose. So what are the main project-based challenges that we encountered, especially regarding communications? So the first one is stakeholder resistance. As many of you may know, not everyone is at the same levels in terms of knowledge or experience, which is actually a risk when you are starting a project or doing BIM implementation in an enterprise. So for sure, we were integrating new ways of working, and we had a small amount of change resistance, but we had to consider the level of every stakeholder. So in BIM integration, technologies consideration counts for about 20%, whereas the social considerations count for 80%. So we are more on the social side. So it's all a matter of how we incorporate the change in the project. So we dealt with it by integrating detailed procedures, and we also gave small learning capsules. Small learning classes. So the goal is to make everyone at the same level, and that level is set by the project requirements asked by the client. So at the end, everyone was actually happy to have used the new communication tools, and when everyone followed the detailed procedure, they understood a little bit better why we were doing all that. And we also were able to raise the knowledge level for everyone. So it's not only good for the project itself, but for the whole community. So the second challenge that we encountered was the goal of the webinar today, which is the communication structure. We saw that there was no communication structure. All communications were done in silos. By silo, I mean email, phone, and even BCF, because the BCF also implies file management, which is not always efficient. And the issue with siloed communications is that we don't know who is responsible for what and for when. So we don't know always the deadlines and the progress too. Same thing for emails and phones. So the project needed an integrated coordination platform. So we see the kind of communication that were occurring between all the stakeholders. Small note also to come back on the change resistance that I just talked about. We had to mention the stakeholders that we were not trying to replace every communications ways. In fact, we were there to improve them and bring new ways of communicating. So to make sure that everyone is following you, we just told them that they could use the phone still. Another very project-specific challenge was the fact that the project was delivered in packages or lots. So when the GC came in, we coordinated to establish a coordination calendar to make sure we cover all the important construction lots. So there's a specific context in Quebec. I think that most of you are aware of the schematic design, detailed development, detailed design, and construction drawings. Here in Quebec, we are working in percentages. So we have typically a 40%, 90%, and 100%, which is actually the construction documentation. So based on Quebec context, we established the schedule that you see on the bottom part. So for every lot, every package, we had a 90% deliverable date that was given to me by the GC. So what I did is I did a kind of a reverse engineering to get the detection date, the clash detection date, and visual inspection, the date that we needed to publish our issues on BIM Track in that specific project, and also the date of the coordination meeting. Also in that schedule, I added a place where I mentioned if the lot has to be published with a IFC or NWC file export, in order for the sub to understand the lot more accurately. And also another point where I mentioned if the sub was going to provide a BIM model. So the stakeholder knows if he's going to receive a model to validate or not. So based on that schedule, we were able to focus on specific element categories in order to coordinate properly. We were repeating the process for most of the lots, and when a lot was already well coordinated, we didn't have to meet again. We must not make the coordination process heavier. It's here to help. And when I say that that process was done on the most important lots, for example, we were not doing clash detection or visual inspection on ceramic flooring, for example. Then, what are the processes and strategies that I had to implement in the project to make the communication work better? So first of all, we had to change a little bit the client deliverable. Typically, he was used to have a 40% paper deliverable. So we asked to postpone the 40% to a 60%, which was a new deliverable for him. And at that 40%, we did a interactive navigation in the model. So because the client had access to the model, we gathered people from different departments in order to get their comments and optimize the concept based on their professional experience. So we had a meeting with the operators of the buildings, with the mechanical engineering at the client, and also with the Universal Accessibility Committee. So what are the communication metrics that I had to put in place, which is the second point to be implemented? So as you can see, we have three main teams in the project. In each team, we have a team member which is responsible for modeling, and we also have a coordination lead, which is more in the center of the graph. And this is where we have to do a distinction between a coordination lead and a BIM coordinator. A BIM coordinator, quickly, he has software experience. He exports and aggregates the model. He runs automated clash detection. He can do the visual inspection too, to spot small things that doesn't work. Whereas the coordination lead, this guy has construction experience. He knows if a problem may really cause extras on construction site, and he knows his team, so he's able to delegate issue resolution efficiently. Okay, and he's the one who's going to do the triage for the clashes, because not all clashes are construction issues, and we don't want to send 2,000 clashes to everybody in the project. So the coordination lead is going to filter those clashes and find the 20 real construction issues in those 2,000s. For sure, the BIM coordinator and the coordinator lead can be the same people, can be the same person. So in this case, we had, let's suppose, a team member in the structure team. He finds something, he's going to assign it to the coordination team, which is redlined at the center of the graph. The coordination leads together, they are going to talk about that issue, and if it needs to be transferred to another team, they will assign it, because everyone in that team knows his own team, his own team member. For example, the most classical example is in mechanical electrical, where we have electrical, fire protection, HVAC, plumbing, heating, cooling, that kind of stuff. So it's not one person who's going to do everything. So we have to know who to assign the real issue. That kind of process sure creates a funnel restriction, but it makes the coordination more efficient, because all the issues that are transferred to the team member are real issues, and are already assigned to the correct team member for that one. Next point was about coordination workflow. As you can see, we have a graph explaining very quickly what we have to do in a deadline of about 16 days. This is the typical workflow that we try to implement in our projects, but in that specific project, we decided to compress it to a 10 days process. So this is something that can be flexible and adapted to every kind of project. This is also a process that was used during the design phase, and the GC can also use that same process during the construction phase to coordinate with the subs. One small note before I start explaining the whole process is that we coordinate on the 90% deliverable, which I explained at the very beginning. So it gives us time to correct everything we find before the 100% publication, the construction documentation. So to explain the graph, on number 1, we have the model publish. So assuming interdisciplinary coordination is okay, for example, a door versus an architectural partition, we don't want to have that kind of issue still in the architectural model. So we publish our model on the FTP or the model exchange platform. The day after that, everyone runs a clash detection that they are responsible of, and they publish the issues on BIM Track in this case. We give a full day for everyone to check and do a preliminary assignment using the disciplines label, and that assignment will be used at the meeting the day after. So when we start the meeting, we know that we have 20 issues that needs to be solved for structure, 10 for architectural and mechanical, and we can order the meeting that way, organize the meeting. So during that meeting, the goal is not to solve all the issues. The goal is to assign the problems to the correct disciplines and make sure that they know what they have to do before the 100% deliverable. After that meeting, we give everyone a buffer period in which they correct and communicate the required change in order to solve all the issues. And at the end, we open the issues in the updated model and we see if it's solved or not. So it's kind of a validation step. At the very end, number 8, we have the issue closure. At this point, we export a report of the coordination status, so everyone knows if there are any issues left to solve. So what we were able to achieve. First thing is organized coordination and communication, which is the goal of everything I put in place. Also, facility maintenance team feedback, as I said, because we gathered the maintenance team, we were able to get their professional experience. The example that comes to my mind every time is the curtain wall that was directly set on the floor for the gymnasium. The facility operator mentioned that it was easier to have maybe a 6-inch wall or 12-inch wall in order to avoid smearing the curtain wall glass when he was cleaning the floor. So it's small details that makes the building easier to operate. Universal accessibility committee. So same thing, because we gathered the universal accessibility members, we were able to optimize the circulation clearance where universal accessibility was needed. In the image right there, the example is that there was not enough space for four-wheelers. So the committee, in fact, asked to cut the left bench in order to increase the clearance. Again, small details, that helps a lot. And one nice thing about the diffuse part of that slide is that at the end, we were able to publish a report that informed the universal accessibility and the maintenance team of what was integrated in the final design. So they know what they are going to have in the project. As a final word, we have the BIM Director that said, as the client, having implemented a communication strategy alongside a cloud-based BIM coordination tool was beneficial for both the monitoring and the control of the construction project, and the active participation of people in design reviews helped a lot in the clear definition of communication. And the clear definition of communications has ensured a close follow-up. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the question part of the GoToMeeting, and Alexine will ask them to me.
Hi, Alexandre. Thank you very much for that. We've been a little bit quiet on the question front so far, although I've just had one come in. So how did you communicate changes done on a regular basis? For example, if architecture moved some walls and needed to alert MEP, was it through a memo or some system?
The best process would be to have an operator of the model during the coordination meeting. So when they are talking about a specific point that is going to change, it should already be pointed in the model using BIM Track and assigned to MEP or whatever the discipline is going to be affected by that change.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Alexandre. Unfortunately, I have no more questions unless there's any that are being typed out right now. So unless I see some ping up over the next moment, we're going to be ending the webinar. I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance today, and thank you, Alexandre, for sharing your experiences on this project. Again, we'll be sending recordings to all those who registered. So I will now be ending the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.